Hey, what's up, mortals? It's Kane here with a new video for you. In this video, we'll dive into part 1 of Historia Rice from the Attack on Titan anime. I just wanted to greet you guys by saying just sit back and relax, you're in for a treat. So let's get started. Historia Rice is a member of the Rice family, who are the first King of the Wall's descendants. She's the daughter of Rod Rice and Alma. Alma was a servant in the Rice household and later became a mistress and confidant of Rod. After Historia's mother became pregnant with her, Alma left the Rice household and returned to her family's farm where Historia had been born and raised. The farm in which Historia was raised was owned and administered by the Rice family. Even though Historia lived with her mother, Alma became distant from her and spent her time reading as well as leaving the estate at night via carriages. She also never participated in the work around the estate, and somehow she could gain income from another source. Because her mother never paid attention to Historia, she never had a mother figure or someone to care for her, until Frida Rice, Historia's half-sister, came to the farm to visit her. Unaware that Frida was her half-sister, she taught Historia how to read and encouraged her to become a kind girl that everyone would love. However, when Frida left the farm, she would use her founding Titan's powers to erase most of the interactions she had with Historia. Frida's memories were sealed deep within Historia's subconscious and often appeared in dreams, and eventually they would be forgotten when she awoke. As Historia got older, she began to read every book she could get her hands on, especially books that depicted the typical relationship between a mother and child. She began to question her relationship with her isolated mother and wanted to understand what it was like to have physical contact with her. Historia attempted to hug her mother, but resulted in Alma slapping her away. Alma then lamented that she did not have the bravery to kill Historia when she was born. Despite being bruised by her mother, she felt happy because it was the first time her mother had spoken to her. After the incident, Historia never interacted with or saw her mother again for several years. As she got older, Historia began to understand her position in the Rice household. People on the farm regarded her as a curse and grave burden to her family, though she never understood the reason for her treatment and rejection. A few days after Wall Maria's fall, Rod Rice came to the estate with her mother to see Historia and take her into the Rice household. As Rice left with Historia, they were surrounded by unmarked soldiers of the 1st Interior Squad of the Military Police Brigade. They confronted Rod over Historia and her mother's identity since they wanted to kill anyone that was part of the Rice family. Rod, however, denied any relation to them. One of the soldiers, Kenny Ackerman, restrained Alma, who desperately attempted to deny being Historia's mother, only to be killed by Kenny. Before she died, Alma looked at Historia and coldly stated that she wished she had never given birth to her. As the soldiers were preparing to kill Historia, Rod intercepted and wanted to offer another alternative. He said that if Historia would disappear from the Rice household, assume a new name and identity before enlisting as a trainee, the soldiers wouldn't need to kill her. The soldiers agreed with Rod's proposal and gave Historia the name of Krista Linz. Because of Frida Rice's influence, Historia used a persona she had created for herself that was selfless and kind to those around her. However, in her innermost self, she was an empty shell of a girl, uncertain of her true nature and personality. Afterward, Historia lived in a refugee camp, pretending to be someone who had lost her family during Wall Maria's attack until she came of age to enlist as a trainee in the military camp. Once she joined the training corps, she made acquaintances with fellow trainees, including Aaron Yeager, Sasha Blouse, and Ymir. Historia even showed her kindness by sneaking out after eating dinner and brought bread and water to Sasha. During the completion of a training exercise inside a snowstorm, Historia noticed that a fellow trainee called Daz lost consciousness due to the harsh training. She tried to save him by pulling his body along on a cot, but Ymir protested that they would only survive if they abandoned Daz and kept going to the base without him. However, Historia insisted that they could all survive if Ymir went ahead of her. Ymir then revealed that she was aware of Historia's true past since she'd heard officials from the Church of the Walls discussing her existence. Historia then asked Ymir if she joined the training corps to find her, but Ymir answered that Historia's past was similar to hers. Historia also asked Ymir if she wanted to befriend her, but Ymir said they were nothing alike. Eventually, Ymir led Historia to a cliff overlooking the base at the foot of the mountain. She also proposed to toss Daz over the edge so that she and Historia could make it to the base alive. Historia quickly objected to Ymir's proposal, but Ymir took matters into her own hands and threw her aside into a snowbank. When Historia finally escaped the snow and returned to the cliff, Ymir and Daz were nowhere to be found. Historia was able to arrive at the base safely and spotted Ymir outside. She quickly asked about Daz and showed her that she'd saved him. Historia saw that the descent from the cliff to the ground was impossible without a rope, so Ymir decided to reveal to Historia how she had saved Daz, but only if she promised to live by her true name when her secret eventually becomes known to everyone. Eventually, Historia graduated from the training corps as one of the top trainees thanks to Ymir, who gave her the position. Historia decided to join the Survey Corps to venture outside the walls and defeat the Titans. During one of her missions, Historia, Ymir, Sasha, Connie, Raynor, Bertold, and the rest of the soldiers were taking refuge in a nearby castle due to nightfall. However, the castle was under attack by Titans, and the 4 soldiers equipped for battle and engaged the Titans outside. The recruits tried to barricade the entrance to the castle so that none of the smaller Titans could get in. However, it was too late to barricade because the Titans had already infiltrated the castle. Eventually, Raynor was attacked by one of the Titans, while Historia, Ymir, and Connie rolled a nearby cannon, knocking it away from Raynor. However, another Titan entered, but Raynor managed to push it out of a window and got hurt in the process. The recruits fled upwards into the castle's tower, and Historia used a strip of her skirt to bandage Raynor's wound. When they finally reached the top of the tower, they watched in horror as the Titans killed the 4 scout soldiers fighting outside the castle. Historia tried throwing rocks at the Titans, declaring that she would fight to the death against them. However, Ymir called her out for trying to use her superior's death as a reason to die. She took a knife from Connie and reminded Historia of the promise they made on the night they got stranded in the woods with Daz. Before Historia could stop her, Ymir jumped off the tower and used the knife to transform into a Titan. As Historia and the rest of the group watched Ymir fighting against the Titans, Raynor questioned Historia if she knew that Ymir could transform into a Titan. While the rest of the trainees questioned whose side Ymir was on, Historia remembered everything that Ymir had said to her during her time at the training corps. She concluded that Ymir was fighting to protect everyone. After the fighting, Historia, along with the rest of the trainees, rode on Ymir's back to escape the tower and land on the ground safely. Suddenly, Ymir started getting eaten by Titans, and Historia quickly went towards her but was stopped by a Titan. Suddenly, Mikasa Ackerman managed to kill the Titan, and Historia quickly went towards Ymir. As Historia held Ymir in her arms, she told her true name so that she could hear it. Sometime later, after Raynor and Bertold revealed themselves to be Titans and captured both Eren and Ymir, Historia was assigned to provide care for the wounded. She insisted that Ymir was still alive and begged the other soldiers to rescue her. Eventually, she joined the team that was assigned to rescue Ymir and Eren. They caught up to Raynor and Bertold, but were unaware that Ymir had been convinced to ally with them in exchange for Historia's safety. When Ymir appeared in her Titan form, Historia rushed to greet her and was quickly entangled in Ymir's mouth so that the warriors could kidnap her. As the Titans fled from the military, Ymir finally spat Historia out and partially emerged from her Titan form so they could speak. Historia believed that Ymir was only forced to cooperate with the traitors and begged to be released to escape. However, Bertold pointed out that Ymir wasn't being forced and she was doing it of her own accord. Finally, Ymir had a breakdown and told Historia that she intended to use Historia's status as the heir of the Rice family and hoped to save herself from the traitors she served while begging Historia to cooperate. In response, Historia smiled and told Ymir that she would always stay on her side. Suddenly, Mikasa arrived and attacked Ymir with no hesitation. Historia quickly stepped forward to stop the fight. She pleaded with Mikasa to spare Ymir and refused to back down even when Mikasa threatened her. However, Mikasa made it clear that she would not spare anyone that got in her way, so Historia decided to talk Ymir out of fighting any further. Before Historia could resolve the conflict, Erwin Smith charged at Raynor in his armored Titan form with Titan's horde behind him. One of the Titans attacked Historia, but she could kill it, making it the first Titan that Historia had ever killed. Connie attempted to rescue Historia, but rejected his help since she believed that she must stay with Ymir, otherwise she would die. After Eren unleashed the Coordinate during the battle, Ymir chose to leave with Raynor and Bertold, leaving Historia behind. After they retreated to Wall Rose, Historia nearly fainted from exhaustion, distraught that Ymir had chosen the traitors over her. Yin noted that Krista was not behaving like herself. As Historia heard that name, she realized that she was done being her, and that Krista was just a name she was given to stay alive. After Levi and Hangi discovered that the Rice household was the true royal family, Erwin planned to place Historia on the throne. However, Historia was reluctant to take on the new role and felt unfit for the task. Levi then snapped at Historia and laid out how dire their situation was, pressuring her to agree. Historia and Eren were placed in Demo Reeves' care, who was the new accomplice against the royal government, so that they could get captured by the 1st Interior Squad and taken to Rod Rice, Historia's father and the true King of the Walls. Eventually, the 1st Interior Squad managed to capture both Historia and Eren, and Historia was finally reunited with her father and apologized for everything that had happened. Thank you all for indulging yourselves in all this information thus far. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, there are a few more things I'd like to go over before the video ends. Firstly, if you're in the mood for some great storytelling, We the Celestials has you covered. Our We the Celestials, My Hero Academia, and Naruto What If channels retell the story of their namesake anime with a twist. Check it out if you're interested. Secondly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details can be found in the description below. Lastly, if you're interested in what we do here at We the Celestials, then I'd like to extend you an invitation to join the team. The only caveat being that we only accept members from 16 years and up to join our crew. You can sign up for whichever category fulfills your interest by joining the recruitment Discord using the link in the description below. We're always looking for new members to join us. Well, that's it from us for today's video, so thank you all for watching and have a great day.